Hi, I'm Jackson. Welcome to the ENVO Tech Support Series. Today we're going to unbox and build the Flex Trike. So let's start with the frame box. Included in the frame box, some of the parts and accessories you're going to find are your rack and included hardware, your fender, your light and included hardware, chain, pedals, charger, tools, touch-up paint, and seat and seat post. So the next step is going to be to put the frame into the bike stand and remove the rest of the packaging. So to do that, we want to put our seat post into the seat tube. And to do that, first we're going to want to grease the seat tube to prevent the seat post from seizing. When you close your seat post collar, make sure that it's tight. Now we're going to remove the remaining packaging. So next we want to install the bar. So to do this, you may want to leave the stem slightly folded just to get better extension because the cables might not reach far enough. So insert it past the minimum insertion point and ensure that your clamp is tight. And then put it in the upright position. Push the clamp so it closes, and you push this locking tab in the side of the clamp there to ensure that it locks into place. So next we want to install our front wheel. First we're going to remove this piece of protective packaging and our dropouts. And next what we want to do is we want to ensure our spacer setup is correct on our front wheel. So what you're going to want is this locking washer on the inside of the fork. And then on the outside of the fork, we're going to have this small washer and then the larger bolt. You can also use a 10mm wrench to rotate the axle to ensure that it inserts well into the dropout. And I'm going to use my knee right now to push the wheel upwards so that it's fully maxed out in the dropout. Now I'm going to fully torque these with a wrench. Same for the other side. Now we can plug in the motor wire, making sure both of the arrows on the plugs are aligned. We can secure our motor wire to the fork using the included mount and zip tie. So next we're going to install our fender, and we're going to do so by going from the back of the wheel. So now we're going to insert the long bolt with spacer through the front of the fork and through the fender mount at the back. Next we're going to use the included spacer and nut, and we're going to tighten it with the included wrench and Allen key. Next I'm going to remove this bolt at the bottom of the dropout, and I'm going to install my fender stay. Now that you have your first fender stay installed, flip it over and repeat on the other side. Once you've installed both fender stays, if you need to adjust the distance of your fender from the wheel, you can adjust it using this bolt here. Next, we want to install our rack and headlight. The headlight will fit behind the rack, sharing the same bolt holes. This is the hardware and spacers we'll be using. The best technique is to align your light to your rack before you install it. Once the rack and headlight are installed, you'll need to plug in the headlight. To do so, align the arrows on the sides of the plugs and push them together. Next, we're going to want to install our seat. To do so, you may want to loosen off the bolts here at the bottom, just enough so that it still stays engaged with the nut at the top so it doesn't fall apart. Then you'll want to turn your seat clamp slightly sideways, Place your seat rails and align those, and then lift the top clamp and turn it sideways over top of the seat rails and tighten. Next, we're going to want to install our pedals. Please note the left and right indication at the top of the pedal. Next, we're going to want to install some grease onto the threads of the pedals. We can do this by just putting on a light dab and running the threads together to ensure that they're fully coated. We can install the pedal using a 15mm wrench. We'll need to insert the thread into the crank and pedal backwards. Repeat for the other side. The next step to get this ready to be installed on the frame is we need to remove all of this hardware. Next, we're going to want to reassemble our axle. So for this, you're going to want to start with a nylon locking nut, 5 washers included in your bag, a regular nut, another regular nut, 5 more washers, and another nylon locking nut. You'll want to take off your nylon locking nut in one of the washers, insert it in the axle slot. One of the washers will be on the outside. Repeat for the other side. You're now ready to install it onto the bike. Next, we're going to want to install this into our rear dropout. To do that, you're going to want 1 bolt on the outside of the rear wheel assembly and 1 spacer, and then you'll have 3 spacers on the inside of the outside of the dropout, and then on the inside of the dropout, you'll have 1 bolt and 1 spacer. Once we have that pressed up to the bottom of the dropout, we can tighten it in. Now we're going to want to install the other bolts to hold on our rear assembly. So we're going to rotate it up to align the rear assembly with this bolt hole in the frame. So you'll want 1 washer on the back and 3 at the front. Now you'll rotate your rear assembly forward and push the bolt through. So again, 1 at the back, 3 in between, and then we'll put 1 on the end, and then our final nut. Once all the bolts are installed, you want to go through and ensure that they're all fully torqued. Now we're going to install the chain. So to do this, you want to come through the frame, around your cassette, and through the derailleur. From here, we can connect the links, and using our chain breaker tool, we can push in the pin. Once your chain is connected, you can release the derailleur for tension and add it to your chain ring. Your chain is now installed. Next, we want to install our shift cable. First, use the supplied shift cable and caps. Install the caps at the ends of the shift cable. Put your shift cable through the shift housing. Install your cable into the supplied cable port. You'll now want to route your shift cable into your derailleur. Ensure that your shifter is in the highest gear. You want to pull the cable tight and clamp it down using your 9mm wrench. Now add a supplied cable end to the end of your cable to ensure that your cable doesn't fray. Once inserted on the cable, crush it to keep it in place. So next we want to route our brake cable. We'll follow the shift cable and it'll come from the bottom of the chainstay and then up and into the brake caliper. Pull it tight and clamp it with a 5mm Allen key. Next, we'll want to install our cable caps at the end of the cables to prevent them from fraying. Insert the cable inside and then crush it on top of the cable. Repeat for both sides. Next, we're going to want to route and plug in our rear tail light. To do this, you'll want to follow your drive side shift cable and brake cable. From there, you'll want to plug in your connectors into the bottom. Left side will be positive, right side will be negative. Red wire is positive, black wire is negative. Next, we're going to want to secure all of our cables to the frame. To do this, we'll want to start with the drive side using the brake cable and the tail light cable and the shift cable. So you'll zip tie all of these together. You'll want to make sure that you don't zip tie over top of your exposed shift cable. You'll want to secure your tail light wire in a location that won't interfere with any of your drivetrain or rear assembly. If you end up with extra wire, you can bundle it up and zip tie the bundle to your frame set. Now we will do the non-drive side using the cable guides included on the frame. Now we can trim off our excess zip tie. We're now ready to install our rear rack. To do this, you're going to want to start by removing all of the installed bolts. Now that we have all the bolts removed, we're ready to install the rear basket. Align the basket over the bolt holes and reinstall the bolts and spacers. If you're having trouble with shifting on your derailleur, some of the things you may want to consider is if you're having trouble shifting up your cassette, you may want to increase your cable tension. If you're having trouble shifting down your cassette, you may want to decrease your cable tension using the barrel adjuster connected to your derailleur. If you're having trouble hitting all of the gears or with chain alignment, you can adjust the full cassette using this locking bolt right here. If you're having trouble with your brakes, some of the things you may want to look at is your cable tension. To adjust your cable tension, you can release this bolt here and pull it tight or move the caliper to ensure that you have the correct tension. To make finer tuned adjustments to your brakes, you can use the barrel adjuster here. Now that the bike is fully assembled, we'll want to go through and make sure everything's tight and do our final double checks. So first thing we want to do is we want to go through our bar, make sure everything's tight. So that includes the grips, the brake levers, the shifter, and the display unit. Grips and display unit are a little bit loose. We'll also want to ensure that the angle of the bar is correct. It looks a little bit forward. We'll also want to confirm that the bar is straight with the front wheel, which also looks like it's a little bit off right now. And we're also going to want to confirm that our seat angle is flat. We're now going to adjust the bar by loosening off the stem and rotating it back until it's in the correct position, keeping it centered. Make sure you evenly tighten on the faceplate of the stem. Next, we're going to tighten on the grips and the display unit. We're now going to loosen off the stem so that we can realign it to the front wheel. Now when it's nice and loose, you just want to straighten it so that it's in line with the front wheel. Now, if you would like to move your seat post, you'll notice that it may hit some locking blocks, so you just want to take out these bolts from the back of the bike. Now you're ready to install your battery. First, remove your keys from the brake line and insert it into the locking cylinder. Now you're ready to install your battery. First, you need to turn the battery into the on position. You can check its charge by pressing the power button. Slide it into the back and push down. You can use your key to lock the battery onto the bike. To power on the system, you'll want to push the power button at the base of the unit. To adjust your pedal assist, you'll want to use the up and down keys, plus and minus. To go through several different modes, you can press the left side key at the bottom of the pad, and it'll go through your max speed, your average speed, your trip distance, and your overall odometer. To use the light, you'll press and hold the up key. And to turn it off, you'll do the same. There's also a small USB port on the side of the display, which can be used to power or charge small electronics. You can also use your brake levers to automatically engage the brake light. Now that you have your Flex Trike fully assembled, please be sure to read our full user manual. You can find our user manual by scanning the QR code on our seat tube. If you have any questions or concerns, please see the link below to go to our ENVO Help Center. Thank you for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe.